Everyone, I'm just going to wait a second just to give the latecomers some time to get in before we get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Dion Cook from AVIXA, and welcome to Why Corporations Continue to Seek Out AV. It is presented by Jordan Heldrich. This webinar is brought to you by today's sponsor, BARCO. Before I hand the presentation over to Jordan, I just need to go over a couple of quick housekeeping items. For everyone viewing today's webinar live, it qualifies for one CTS renewal unit. Unfortunately, not for the I or the D. Please allow up to 7 business days to view it on your transcripts. If you have any issues, please email my team directly at webinars@avixa.org. The webinar should take approximately 45 to 60 minutes, and all attendees have been placed on mute. If you have any questions during the presentation, please enter them into the Q&A window only so today's moderator can address them when the webinar is over. To access the Q&A window, move your cursor towards the bottom of the live stream box and locate the Q&A icon and type away. You will have access to this recorded webinar at avixa.org/webinars in about 7 business days. Jordan, please take it away.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Jordan Heldridge, and I'm the Segment Marketing Manager for Control Rooms. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about why corporations are continuing to seek out AV, especially throughout this past year and currently. So we'll go ahead and get started. Now, I know 2020 has been a crazy year for everybody, with lots of changes, whether it was what you needed to now wear to go outside with masks, or how you interact with people, or the limited amount you're allowed to act with people. And all of these changes definitely changed us individually, but it also affected all the businesses we work with. And corporations are definitely one that had a hit as well. So with that, corporations really had to focus on 2 different groups. One, their customers, and with that also their employees. So for the customers, they needed to make sure that they were putting their best foot forward because they wanted to keep up that customer engagement as well as keeping them as customers. All right now, within a small recession with the economy, it's been very difficult for different corporations and businesses to be able to maintain or even survive. So that was one aspect that they were very concerned about. Another has been also their own employees and just being able to remain operational. And with that, all of this sort of has changed depending on the location from month to month, spike to spike. I'm not sure where everybody else is out there, but I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and right now we're also going through another spike, as well as in California, which is starting shutdowns again. And corporations also needed to be able to remain flexible for these. And with that comes some accountability. What are they going to do when they send out that email? Is there a way to measure how the different buildings are handling this? Are they also able to stay efficient for it? So these are some of the different concerns that corporations have actually been turning to AV to help solve over this past year. Now, I know we all feel like we're about 1 month or even less than a month now towards 2021. But unfortunately, not all of our problems are going to just stop on that day. When we go into 2021, we're not looking at the brand new year that I know we all are hoping for. So we're going to have to make some changes now. And lucky for us, AV is an area that we're able to help bring people in a very interesting way. So let's think about what corporations are sort of going through when you start interacting with them. Now, before COVID and before really just this past year, think about the lobbies. When you entered into a lobby, it was sort of the first impression that you got of a corporation or any sort of company, really. They spent a lot of time and money to make sure that that lobby had a certain atmosphere and gave you a certain feeling right when you entered for them to get, or for you to get to know their business. So if you look at this picture, this was actually even just a mock-up, something that people were going for to make sure that you felt engaged, happy, saw people in the lobby, also saw a coffee shop. A lot of people liked the clean aesthetic, a happy smiling face as a receptionist. And then all of a sudden, all of that changed this year. We had to switch over and be concerned about our safe and healthy, and all of these different aspects started to come up just to be able to maintain operations. So for different periods of time, we actually had it shut down, and now you can see different plexiglasses coming up. Now, again, think back when the corporations are trying to make it inviting for all of their customers to enter and be excited to be there. Now, all of a sudden, it's a whole different atmosphere. People also don't necessarily know what they're about to walk into in the lobby. And when you see this, all of a sudden there's a little paranoia that can sort of creep in. Are people standing in the right spot? Do you feel comfortable with the distance? Your distance comfort level may not be the same as somebody else's. And overall, again, with all the plexiglass and all the distances, it's not the entire idea that they were originally going for. And so this is where companies and a lot of corporations can start moving towards AV. And this is a totally different idea that many corporations have started moving to even slightly prior, where you can make this an interactive and memorable experience right from the get-go for the customers. So think about the last time you entered into a new business. What were you greeted with? Was it a lot of different paper signs going down? Were you told to wait somewhere? Were you meeting outside? Think about if you were able to then actually start welcoming your customers in a way that they were also getting to see more information about the corporation. It's an easy way for the corporations to also start playing into their own different technology specialties and or any of their messaging that they want to get across. And most importantly, it's a memorable activity for them to experience while keeping all of us at a safe distance. So different corporations have started to transform their lobbies into different areas that they now can have less physical contact, but still get that memorable experience. Luckily, it still feels a lot of technology heavy, which again, puts them sort of back in the front of a forward-thinking company. Now, a couple different other options have come up as well. One of them is specifically holographs. Now, with this, you may have seen these in the past, and they've definitely been around for some time. But depending on where you were in the world, it sort of played better than others. I know right now there's a hotel actually in Japan that all the receptionists are holographs. And if you walked in there, that may be your very first experience doing it one-on-one. But previously, a lot of different areas that would not have flown well. A lot of people were hesitant, they judged it a lot. Now, all of a sudden, everybody's views have changed because people may not feel as comfortable seeing a person that close or getting their information from them. And it's a different interaction than you would get if, say, it's you 6 feet away from plexiglass from somebody sitting on the other side in a mask where you can't even see their face. Now, I'm glad everybody is social distancing and being safe, but again, it's not the same memorable experience of the relaxing, hey, welcome to our company that corporations are looking for. So this is a new one that different corporations are turning to AV for to really help change up that conversation and again, change that experience. Another thing is the LED displays. Now, when we think about how often we're looking at monitors, whether it's our TV or our computers or outside, it seems like it's 24/7. I know every time that I get that notification on my phone of how much time I've spent on my screens this week, it's never a fun time. I don't even know why they do it, to be honest. But with that, we all become really aware when there is a poor quality screen. And especially when you're right in front of a business for the first time, it's a judgment call. If the calibration doesn't line up, if one of the screens goes down, it's not something you want to see. And so LED displays have really come up as one of the things to do in the lobby because of the precision that you're able to see. And again, it's that first view, putting your best foot forward that the company is wanting to show. Now, all of this is going on and you can see that there's no people interacting. But what if the companies could take it a step further? Everybody hates waiting. It's one of those things that nobody wants to do. And if you remember a couple slides back, people were in line. And again, that's when the nervousness comes about. You then know people are going to start backing up behind you. So what if we were able to sort of take away some of that pressure just by letting technology do some of those guidelines and check off different areas while they're having this interactive experience through different technologies. So they have different camera checks that are now able to do temperatures. You can even see and have somebody watching on the screen if people are already wearing the right masks, have possibly gloves on that are required, while a person is notifying the actual host at the company that their guest has arrived. This is a very different experience. And again, it brings back some of that awe of when you go into a customer and have them, or when you go into a company and have that customer really experience something. And that's corporations trying to, again, think outside the box. And AV is the area that can deliver on this. It keeps that technology difference. And one thing I've noticed is that a lot of the companies are searching for a little bit more outside the box. Some of them are willing to bring it to you, but also it's the time to start suggesting some of these things. What are they willing to do for their customers? And then at the same time, be able to make sure the security practices are happening for their employees on the backside.
Hello, Jordan.
Yes.
I'm getting a few messages from some of our attendees that they are having trouble hearing you and that your audio is cutting in and out. So could you please adjust your audio?
Let me see. Is it better now? I'm not sure if that did anything. Or if there's anything you recommend I switch over to.
I guess just give it a shot, and if I see anything else, I'll let you know.
All right. Sorry about that. Hopefully it won't come in and out anymore, but definitely let me know. So another area that this could all be taking place to make sure that the employees are also safe is by having it outside. So here we have an LED screen where actually all of this messaging and some of this experience could be happening outside of the building. That way, there's no issues and they can actually be monitoring, again, the temperature checks, what's going on through video camera before an external customer actually comes through the door. As well as this is before COVID, as you can see with so many people on the street. But this is another way that afterwards, people will be able to have messaging. So now let's go inside of the actual office for corporations. There are other different environments that you can transform. So when we look over here to the left, we have a picture of a meeting room. And I know everybody's seen these different small meeting rooms before. They're typically used for a couple different virtual calls, now maybe even some distancing if you're allowed in your office. But considering currently they're used for virtual calls and previously they were used for virtual calls, this would be a great opportunity to also be transforming that into more of a studio. Think about the difference in the lighting and the camera and everything that happens. If you're always using the same space over and over again for something that's virtual, maybe this is a good opportunity for all of the corporations to switch over to start actually promoting that. I do believe that all of the different webinars are going to continue on as many corporations also realize that a lot of these internal meetings can be done virtually. But there's a big difference when you can see all of the lighting changes and being able to see all of the different participants, like in this back picture, versus just being in that room. So this is, again, another way that the corporations are moving towards some different AV functions that are able to help their customers again. I saw some different things coming in. Is everything okay?
Appears to be a mixed bag. Some people say they can hear you just fine, as I can, and some people say that you are going in and out. If you have a microphone, you might want to consider using that instead of being on speaker, but if you don't, then we just have to continue.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't have a microphone, but we'll keep going. Sorry for everybody who isn't able to hear it all. So here's another image of, we'll silence that. Here's another image of a different option for the control rooms or for the meeting rooms. So when you're going in and transforming some of these areas, also think about what's going to happen afterwards when people do come back into the office. Think about how you can start engaging at a different level for these smaller rooms. Corporations are starting to look at making different meetings also interactive. Here you can see that they're utilizing some VR as well as that large wall to actually take up a large section of the room. So this is another way to, again, make a memorable experience of that meeting and really transform how the customer is going to view everything. So this is really a great way for all of the corporations to be sort of shifting over and really just presenting what their own product is or solution in a highlighted manner to make sure that they're being put in the best light possible. Now let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the employees themselves. I know that there have been many different standards that have been put out over the past year for COVID, and each company really sort of adopted their own practices, whether it was switching up and not having everybody sit next to each other, just maintaining 6 feet, You can also see some people wearing masks and different cleaning practices. Now, even within companies, it didn't mean it was necessarily standard. It could have changed from site to site. And also, as people visit each other from different corporations, it changes, which leaves space for human error. And that's where we can come into some different problems. So with that, we offer a different way, or AV can offer a different way, really, to have some accountability and really show what's going on in measurable data, which is a huge difference that many people aren't able to do. Now, this is something that has been coming on actually for several years. Corporations have been starting to adopt Operations Center, whether it's security focused or network focused, so that we're really able to show what's going on and let them really help make decisions to be more efficient based on data. It helps them see the entire picture, whether it's the security cameras or in and out access codes, to really make sure that they're able to react and adjust and then optimize their operations. So really quick, we'd like to switch over to a poll and see how many people have actually worked with one of these before. So we'll start the poll. And we'll give it a couple more seconds. Please vote if you can. All right. I'm going to end the poll here. And with this, we have almost 50-50. We have 58% saying no and 43% saying yes. And we'll share the results quick so you guys can all see it. And we're going to stop sharing that for now. Now, I wanted to share that because a lot of people I know have some issues with how things come together, especially when we're talking about AV with IT. But it's great that half of you guys have already started working on some of these different operation centers or network centers, or even security operation centers, because I know it can be a little challenging and it's definitely a different spin. So when we're talking about AV with IT, I do feel like over maybe the past 5-10 years, it's definitely seen jumbled together. And I love this image because it shows everything mixed up. And then for the operations center, it comes together clear and then moves forward, because they really do need to work together to make these different operation centers work. Now with that, for the half of you almost that haven't really worked with one before, hopefully you've worked with some different IT, or that it isn't a hindrance to your interest in it. But I definitely want you guys to think about all the benefits of being also associated and having access to that IT area. Think about all the different projects. It really helps expand your scope. So while you're working with different corporations and focusing on different lobbies or meeting rooms, this sort of brings in a whole nother level of what you can be discussing with them and where it can lead to. It also can really help make sure that you are providing and recommending the leading technologies that are currently available. And then also, I know we've had a lot of webinars this year, but if you haven't had any experience with IT, I highly recommend that you look into it as something to be developing during this time when we aren't really able to go outside the house as much. It definitely helps to have that skill set in your back pocket, and it can even help you be sort of the go-to person on your team for it. And that can definitely help to being a team lead, especially for these bigger projects. And again, we're talking about thinking outside the box for these corporations so that they're able to rely on you for whether it's consulting or really just upping their customer experience. And having that extra knowledge of different technologies out there can really help. So I know about half of you, again, don't really know what's going on in some of these situations. So we'll go into the operations centers a little bit more. But overall, it's really focusing on how that the corporations can maintain the entire situational awareness so that they're able to react and become more effective. So how are they going to do that? They need to be able to stay highly available but they need to also figure out how to be secure, remotely distribute some of that information, be highly reliable. So let's take a look at some of the ways they're able to do that. Now, we talked a little bit about LED walls earlier, but it really needs to be uninterrupted LED walls. Now, again, with outside in the lobby or outside and in the lobby, we want to have that continuously up. But that's the exact same for inside some of these operation centers. We need to make sure that all of the information is there. So if anything does go wrong, we also need to be able to have automatic and continuous calibrations to make sure that people are back up and running immediately. We also need to be able to do quick panel replacements so that you're not sitting there waiting for a guy to come out, especially during this time where you may have to actually get several approvals to get somebody from another company out there to fix a wall. Mostly in an operations center, all of your data is up on the wall, and you may have different video screens of who's accessing in or out. So the idea of having part of that down means everything needs to shift in the organization, or you're actually sitting there waiting. So this is a very important point to make sure that you're continuing. Now also for LED, it has a lot of specific benefits for the people who are viewing it. Besides what we spoke about earlier, actually people being able to sort of notice the difference. When we're talking about standing there or sitting there and really looking at an LED screen 24/7, whereas some of these operation centers are operating all the time, there are other benefits to moving over into LED. We have reduced eye fatigue as well as the heat management. And really, when you think about it, look at this large video wall that could be in an operation center. Having to stare at something like this, where you can see the map is very detailed, over and over for hours, just to make sure that everything's okay, no alarms are going off, nothing's changing, everybody's got the right access, that can be very tiring. So little things like that can really help the ergonomics of that person. You can also see the wide horizontal viewing angle makes such a difference when it's in LED. Now, a lot of operation centers, especially in corporations, aren't necessarily this large. They're a lot smaller. They may only have 1 or 2 LED screens in front of them. But when you're talking about sitting in front of them, that's a lot of heat depending on what kind of monitors you're using, especially having them up and running all the time. And the networking below it could also have a lot of heat. So also being able to have that heat management to make sure everything is running smoothly and none of the equipment gets damaged is a huge benefit. So another area that the corporations are looking for towards AV is being able to also take that information and then make decisions off of it. Remember, when we're talking about the corporations being able to actually be more efficient, they need to be able to actually come together and decide. So with that, some information and some decisions can be done directly in the centers, but also sometimes they may need to have breakout rooms and separate back out. Now, this is again, back into the AV wheelhouse. So it should be an easy transition when you're talking to some of the people who are working on these operations centers that, oh yes, let's also expand. Have they discussed the different meeting rooms outside before? Have you discussed how they're going to connect? Because there are definitely different technologies, such as a collaboration wall manager, where you're actually able to bring some of that information from the wall directly into the meeting rooms. That way you're able to easily break out some of that information and make sure that, again, you're reacting quickly so that you can adjust and be more efficient. Now, another situation for the different corporations, again, with those spikes, is having that flexibility. Many corporations are not able to sort of go with the flow with a lot of this. I don't think many people describe it as agile. So with that, we need to be able to react very quickly when you have several people in an operation center together. So this also gives the option to, again, break out into different areas through collaboration wall manager to just make sure that they're always able to have some of that information while you're working through a spike. Now, let's sort of change and think a little bit about some of those workstations in the operations center. So again, when we talk about corporations, a lot of times we're talking about some of the smaller rooms. So let's say they have a couple of these desks instead of having a large video wall. Now, when we're talking about all the different things they need to monitor, you may see many different screens. Here we see this guy is working on 7 different screens as well as on a laptop. He has many different keyboards and mice. Now, being able to view all of that and have easy access to all of it is very confusing, and it's not easy. And so one of the options is to switch over to have an actual OpSpace workstation where you can see over here, you're able to sort of break down all of those monitors into one single pixel space. And with that, you can use any sort of applications, regardless of different networks, as well as the different sources, all on one big area. So if you need to break up monitor into different quadrants, you're able to do that, as well as move across from monitor to monitor. This also really helps with some of the different corporations depending on the network security levels. If they have some things that are on Office and then we're switching over to any other area for a network, it can all be shown within that one pixel space. So that's also a great option when you can't have a large video wall, but you still need to have that entire situational awareness for the corporation so that you have all the information in front of you. And again, it's easy to be accessed. So this is something that corporations are starting to look to when they don't want to put in an entire operations center, but still want to have all of that information at their fingertips. Now, what about the people who are working remotely? When we talk about these operations centers, a lot of different decisions can come out of it. Inefficiencies of who is allowed to be let in or what areas are going to be shut down, even if it's just for a few days, especially with COVID. We need to be able to make quick decisions as spikes occur and then move on. But only X amount of people are going to be in the operations room at one point in time. So there are different options, and Secure Stream is one where you're actually able to send out the information to remote responders. Now, that can be a couple different people. That can be the different managers, whether they're at home or even in bed, just checking on things going on. They can get a URL and then they're able to see exactly what is on the video wall. Now, it may also be the first responders. If they're told there's a security breach or, hey, it looks like that door is open, can you go and check it out? They're able to actually send them the information so that they're able to see it on their phone. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So here we have the video wall and going down into the program. And right now we're going to grab and drop a piece of the video wall into the Secure Stream. And with the URL, it goes on to another screen. And so anybody with that URL is able to see that, even on your mobile phone. So again, when thinking about the corporations being able to be efficient and make decisions quickly, this is an easy way to show X alarm went off, problem happened, and now we're able to solve it. Or if we need to have the extra authority, let's send it to their cell phone. Let them also see what's going on so we can make and adjust quickly. Now with that, AV has really been supporting a lot of the corporations in many different ways. So I really liked this image because it really showed all of the different areas, whether when you walk in with the lobby, it also shows it in some of the different meeting rooms and breakout rooms, the auditorium, up into the control room, and even at home. AV is constantly a part of the corporations. And sometimes I feel like the corporations aren't really realizing how many different places it is all over there. But when you go in and when you're talking to different corporations, remember that. Remember that just because it's not being seen, it doesn't mean it couldn't connect in together or something that couldn't be innovative for you to bring up and have it come together. So today we talked a lot about the control room. We talked about the meeting space. We talked about the lobby. But here are some of those other areas that really could also be areas that the corporations are turning to AV. So when they turn to you for the lobby or for your control room, start thinking also about those other areas to bring them in. Are they connected? Is it easy to work together? Have you talked to IT about it? Maybe all of this could also change the entire scope of the project that you guys are looking at. So it definitely gets pretty interesting once you start thinking about all of those different areas. Now, a lot of the stuff that we talked about today was really focused on all the changes that happened this past year. But a lot of them were already starting. They were just in the earlier stages. And that doesn't mean that after COVID, or hopefully life gets back to a little bit more normalcy, that the corporations won't benefit from these different changes. Think back to the lobby. I always want to go in and experience something new and engaging. So do most customers. So some of these things can continue to move on even afterwards. So right now, although we've been putting little band-aids on things, this is a time that corporations are seeking out AV to really up their level for the next several years. So let's take advantage of that situation. Make sure their customers and employees feel that engagement and are be able to remain operational, whether it's through any sort of spikes, and also to be able to remain efficient through looking at their own data sets of accountability. So that is the really final message I wanted to leave you guys with to make sure that this is not just something that you guys think of as an end of 2020, because again, 2021 is now only a couple days away, and all of this stuff is going to be here to stay for some time. So thank you so much, and we'll open it up for some questions.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alina Mishra, and Jordan and I have been working together to bring you this presentation. I did want to apologize to some of you who had issues in audio. As one of you noted, there are having issues about audio in a AV related presentation is a little funny indeed. So thank you for making light of the situation. Really appreciate it. It put a smile on my face for sure. And I see in Jordan's face as well. I do want you guys to know that this presentation will be available to all of you, and you're free to reach out to us and ask any specific questions or any clarifications that might help you further. And yes, some of you also provided great ideas how to make sure AV audio works better next time for the speaker. We'll keep that in mind. So we'll give it a few minutes and to see if questions come in. Jordan, I see a couple of questions. Well, there's more coming in. Do you find, Mark says, do you find that these operation centers are still being manned, or are they working remote?
So for the most part, I've found that most of them are still being manned, but it's been very interesting because for the first couple weeks especially, people tried a lot of different things to get people sort of out of the operation centers. But in the end, a lot of people's networks weren't able to really handle everything at home, especially with the setup of trying to see everything. So what I've seen is that usually at least one person is always there. And for larger operations centers, they're actually dwindling it down to maybe 2 or 3 people and then rotating shifts. And then anybody who is able to work remotely, they're working outside of it and then just getting their information back and forth through it.
I hope that answered your question, Mark. There's another question. Can you talk through some of the platforms and consideration out there for integrating customer-facing AR experience? And I'm assuming by AR, David, you mean augmented reality? Stuff related to the holographs?
Sorry, for a second I was waiting for his response, but we'll assume so. So to be honest, there are a lot of different ones out there, and different people have come up with slightly different ways of whether it's going to be projected or not, or how it's going to go through. But I'd like to sort of take this one offline if possible, because a lot of them have sort of a different experience when you're talking to a customer on how the experience you want them to have. So whether it's sort of hidden behind a screen or actually making it look like a screen is 3D versus being projected, all around just sort of how the end user is going to experience it is what the corporations are sort of making their decisions off of. So it's a little bit of research on both sides on what the corporations really want to know or what they want that end user to experience when they're seeing that.
And that was augmented reality, David confirmed.
Okay.
Next question. I really enjoyed seeing some of the capabilities demonstrated, but where might I find more information regarding the software that drives the sources? So Jordan, do you want to touch on it quickly on a couple of lines about the information regarding the software? And before Jordan answers, Danny, definitely reach out to us. We will be able to help you with whatever amount of information you need and details you might want about this.
Yeah, definitely. I know there's a few different websites and whatnot that we have, especially on BARCO, that'll go through a bunch of this, but to help sort of narrow down the different kinds of software that you're looking for, I think it would be best to sort of talk about it and see which ones you're looking at.
Okay, next question. What kind of costs are involved with some of your proposed solutions? They seem like they can be fairly significant investments and the desire to implement these changes once we can get back into the office. Thoughts?
So some of these definitely have a bigger price tag on them. But unfortunately, when you're thinking about it from the corporation side, it's also a matter of all of the other things that have changed along with it. So when you think about the lobby, for example, you're no longer paying for some of that situation with the receptionist right now because they don't want people sitting there. They only want the host there. So there are some of the different cost balances that are going on. But some of these implementations are something that they're able to do again for the end of the year, because right now budgets are still being set. And we're still talking about corporations where if they have the money, they want to make sure they're able to spend it or at least lock it in for the next several weeks so that they'll again have it next year. There have been many different cuts through different corporations. So not all corporations are going to be able to act the same. But another good point would be to focus on different industries that have been a little bit more successful throughout there. I wouldn't suggest going in and necessarily targeting some of the transportation industries, but other areas have been doing better. And so really also think about the different corporations and what they're doing to see if they're able to also have that extra cash.
Next one, have you seen a trend towards larger, more integrated control centers, especially managing multiple locations? Or is the trend more towards smaller local centers with tighter networking integrations?
You know, I've really seen the trend to be on the second part, where it's smaller local centers tightening the network integrations. Depending on some of the larger corporations, they want to have sort of one in their headquarters where they can still get that information back. But a lot of people have started to move away from the larger ones and really focus on some of those smaller ones to be on site. That way, if there's something going on, they're right there. Also, when we're talking about corporations, a lot of larger ones buy other corporations. And so as you're mixing and merging, some of them already have smaller ones. And so it's easier to sort of maintain sort of that status quo than trying to redo their entire systems.
Okay.
All right.
I believe that is it, everyone. Jordan, thank you very much. Alina, also thank you for your assistance. And I would like to thank everyone for joining us on today's webinar, Why Corporations Continue to Seek Out AV. We apologize for some of the technical difficulties we've had, but the recording will still be available on AVIXA's website at avixa.org/webinars within about 5 to 7 business days. And the 1 CTSRU credit will be applied to your transcripts within those 7 business days. If you're having any trouble, please contact us directly at webinars@avixa.org. Just a side note for those of you who do have a CTS though, if you have registered for this webinar with an email address other than the one that's on file for you, like you can still get credit for attending, we just have to fix it. So please email your account manager and let them know that you use the wrong email address and we'll get that corrected for you on the back end. So I'd like to thank our sponsor for today, BARCO, and a huge thank you to our presenters, Jordan and Alina, for helping us to understand why corporations continue to seek out AAV. We hope you've enjoyed this. Please stay safe, everyone, and let's make it a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.